So this is going to trigger a lot of people who are against putting money into the game, which I totally understand because you see here 250 million bought, which is 40 bucks, not cheap at all. I'm not saying 40 bucks is not a lot of money because it is, but it isn't a backbreaker like EAFC if you want to get the Hullets and the R9s and Mbappe's and all that. You're talking hundreds and thousands. So am I defending UFL? No. But the reason I went out and bought, that much CP is because I need to make a couple changes in order to compete as I'm elevating in UFL. So I do like that they put the salary cap. However, the big question is it pay to play or is it pay to compete? Because if you look at the top Premier League players right now, which there's some creators that are at that level, either Premier, Diamond, you see that my team is nothing compared to those teams. And there are absolutely moments in the game where these top players will make a difference and are going to be the difference between winning and losing. And so for me, anything I put my time into, I want to compete to be the best that I can possibly be. Doesn't matter if it is bowling, pickleball, if I'm playing chess, Monopoly, I want to be the very best. I want to have the biggest edge that I can get as a competitor. And it was no different than when I was playing. Now, is it right that, we kind of need to put money into the game? And when I say kind of need to is because you absolutely don't have to, especially because of another thing I want to talk about, which is the handicap. And now that I've played a lot of games, I'm leaning more towards feeling like they did put some kind of a handicap in, whereas it almost feels like it's lag or it's a server issue. But when I'm playing games where the other team is quote unquote pay to play as well, magically there is no lag. It's just a battle back and forth, and obviously there's still some OP things that need to be fixed, but I can deal with that because overall the gameplay is just still enjoyable and much better than EAFC. And I truly don't understand how some people aren't at least, have an open mind to admitting that, the spacing, the passing and stuff. There's some people that are still just downright won't give UFL any bit of credit. So be it. I mean, facts are facts. You see the gameplay. That alone, just a couple clips can show you how much better the spacing is, the ability for end-to-end action. So there's still a lot of great things, but UFL does have this issue where if the handicap that I'm seeing is truly there, like this game that's showing right now is a prime example. I don't know if you can tell because you can't see when I'm pressing the buttons on here, right? Maybe I can add an overlay even though it's so hard to play with for me, but with that on the screen. But because you can't see when I'm pressing the buttons, but I can assure you this game was far different than that last game and in future games. And it was against this opponent who I played twice. I managed to beat him once, and then he beat me, and I literally, like you could see, just simple dribbles. I'm literally stuck in the mud. I can't move. Ball's bouncing everywhere. My passes are delayed. My shots are delayed this whole game. I mean, it's borderline unplayable. But then I go into the next game, and so if it was a server, you'd think a couple games would be strung together where it would feel heavy, right? But it's not, and it's always against these lower-rated teams. So the problem there is you have to pay to play to compete at the higher levels, right? Because if you're not flush across the board with top-level players, you will get exploited. But now I'm noticing, I get it. They had to do something because these teams that are choosing not to put money in, which I totally get, they were just getting crushed. So I get they had to do something, but if this was their answer, whatever this is, it's not the right answer because it now takes your top players that are putting money into the game, right? Which is, let's be honest, that's what they want, right? It's a free-to-play game. That's how they make their money. You're taking them and alienating them and making it to where why would they want to spend money if these lower-ranked teams are just going to get a handicap and their players are going to play terrible. But on the other hand, if they want to compete, against the top teams that are flush across the board with good players, you have to put money in. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. But if they say there's no handicap, okay, but there's something going on because against these lower-ranked teams, right, these teams that are clearly free to play or clearly just lacking. Maybe they don't play as many games and they have a very good record, but their team's lower ranked. They have a clear advantage. I mean, you can hardly move your defenders, the tackles are everything's delayed, and you have an Mbappe that's getting caught up to by a 75 rated 60 pace defender all of a sudden. So it's pretty clear that there's something going on, and the problem with that is it kind of creates a mess. So UFL is definitely going to have to address this and figure it out. I don't quite know the answer, but I do want players to play this game. I do want people to enjoy it. I want to play this game and compete against many other players. So, being someone who plays this game myself, I just know that if they don't fix some of these issues, whether it's handicap, maybe it is a server issue, kind of the gap and difference between the pay-to-play top-rated teams and then like the more RTG build a team that you're given route, if they don't try to bridge that gap and create some kind of a way this can work, I'm afraid that there's going to be players that just say, stick with the devil we know and go back to EAFC, which I definitely don't want to do because this game has so much potential. So hopefully it's just a bump in the road, but so far all I've noticed from paying right now to get Mbappe and Van de Ven, all I really noticed with that is that against the top, rated teams that I match up against, I'm more evenly matched in the attacking area because obviously I downgraded my center back area with Marquinhos, even though Van de Ven's seems just as good, but the attacking players are the most important in this game without a doubt. And so getting Mbappe, I'm definitely more competitive in the front area. But I also noticed that against the lower rated teams, it's just a blatant change in how my team feels and how they perform to the point where there's almost to the point where the lower rated team almost has an advantage. So I'm sure they love it, right? But the problem is then all of your Premier Division, Diamond Division, Ruby Division, so on and so forth that have put money into the game to compete, now you alienate them and they don't want to play. So it's kind of like I said, they have to bridge the gap. They can't make it to where they only cater to these players at the top that want to compete putting in money, but then they totally can't ignore them and give this nonsense handicap to the lower rated. The reason I say nonsense is because maybe there's a working way to do it or make it even, but it can't be that you make one team just totally delayed and take away all their attributes, because then they're not even, that's not Mbappe, that's not Van de Ven, that's not CR7 or Holland, or that's just a model that looks like them that has extremely low stats for whatever game. And if that's not happening, I'd really like an explanation on why in those games, right? There's no way it's a coincidence. It's every single low-rated team it's happening against. So it's not like this handicap thing is just a conspiracy. There's something behind it. So hopefully it gets addressed. They can bridge this gap. I'm going to keep grinding. Like I said, I love the game, and I'm not giving up on it. I do feel like they can fix this somehow, especially if they added a handicap. Simply undo it and go back to the drawing board if they determine it didn't work out, which I don't see how they couldn't with how the game feels. There's no doubt they would have tested it out themselves, tested it out, how it went in Showdown or since they've implemented it. And with how quickly they've made other changes, I can only imagine they would do something to fix that pretty quickly. So it's to be determined, but I will talk to you guys later. Have a good one.